The first of the two-dimensional art techniques that I want to go over is drawing. So what is drawing? Drawing is an immediate and accessible way to communicate through imagery, such as a diagram or a picture, and you can make it with a pencil, pen, or crayon, rather than paint. It's usually a dry medium. Um, and it's also one that's especially drawn in monochrome or monochromatic, one color. So the drawing process, it is a learned process. Anybody can learn this, and the more you practice drawing, the better you get at it. So the act of drawing is being able to push or pull or drag a marking tool across the surface to leave a line or a mark. Sketchbooks are primary means of displaying those marks. So we also use them to develop our ideas or take notes. Some really neat artist to investigate is Leonardo da Vinci, who took excessive notes in diaries on his ideas and his inventions and his studies of the human anatomy. And Guillermo del Toro, he's a director and producer of the movie Pan's Labyrinth. He also did The Shape of Water, also Hellboy, and many other movies. And every time he creates one of his movies, he keeps a sketchbook of ideas and designs and almost a diary of sorts of his drawings. Here's an example of Guillermo del Toro's. These are some pages from his sketchbook. Um, there will I will include a link later on if you wanted to take a more in-depth look at his sketchbooks. So the drawing process, it's receptive drawing is basically attempts to capture the physical appearance of something before us. So looking outside, drawing what you see, a landscape, a person, so on. Projective drawing is drawing something that only exists in our minds, and usually have no immediate reference for it, more of an idea or concept. This is Martin Ramirez's, and title number 111 is called Train and Tunnel. You can see it's an abstract piece. There is some sort of lines and shapes that indicate a train and a tunnel, but it's more dreamlike. It's more abstracted from our minds. So the drawing process. Some artists present exceptional ability as children, just gifted with drawing, but what comes with drawing is a passion for drawing. If you don't have the passion to draw, then you're only going to draw to a certain point and stop. Some artists who had to develop these drawing abilities include Paul Cezanne, Vincent van Gogh, and I have a couple slides that show his Carpenter compared to the old man, and you could see the significant differences and how long it took him to accomplish getting better as a drawer. A good drawing can appear very simple, such as blind contour drawing. That's basically where you close your eyes and or you look away from the object while you're not looking at what you're drawing while you're drawing it. If you take a peek, then you've kind of defeated the purpose. What it does is it trains your eye to really look and see at something, and then your eye and your hand which moves faster than your mind and your eye will the more you practice it, the more in tune they become, and the more that they actually start to work as one. This is Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait. So Vincent, he was a master of art. He believed he had to master drawing before he could allow himself to use color or paint. He struggled with learning how to draw. He didn't wish to achieve photographic accuracy. He didn't want things to be realistic to the sense of naturalistic. He made drawings from life. He admired simple styles of drawing, such as the Japanese style. So here's Vincent van Gogh, the carpenter, and the old man with his head in his hands, this pencil and paper. Whoops, looks like I'm missing a picture. There it is. So this is his first attempt at drawing, and you can see that the body is a little bit disproportionate. The head seems a little bit larger from this body. The hands not fully developed. But if you compare it to this one down here, everything seems much more proportionally correct. The head looks balanced with the body. The hands have more detail. The feet have more detail. The detail and texture in the clothing is much more obvious. So if we look 1880 and 1882, in 2 years' time, he significantly improved his drawing skills. So again, the more you draw, the more you practice, the better you become. There's 3 functions to drawing: sketching, a study, and then as a final work of art. So a sketch is basically a notation or a record of something you've seen or you want to remember, or maybe something you imagined, and you quickly sketch it out. A study is a preparation for another really more complex work, or a larger work. In other words, you say you want to draw a particular rose, and you might keep drawing it over 20-30 times until you really get down how this particular rose is built or composed. And so you study it over and over and over again. We do this in botanical studies. And then another function of drawing is as an end in itself, as a complete work of art. Sometimes these sketches and studies, they never get put up on the wall in museums and galleries, but if we intend it as a work of art after we've studied that rose 20 times, then we create the perfect rose, or the rose that we're satisfied with, and hence that becomes the work of art. Here's Michelangelo Buonarroti, Study of a Reclining Man. This is a study. You can see that he's practiced drawing hands over and over again, and the body and the muscular, not really no head formed here. He's really working on the body. This is not what he intended as a finished work of art, although we see it today because it is an artifact of history. It was done in red chalk and over stylus underdrawing. So here's study for tube shelter perspective. You can see very faintly these lines here. These are actually grid boxes. So he maybe was intending to create this into a painting, and each box in itself contains information, and he would have worked one box at a time in creating this painting. But it's a study in perspective, you know, this kind of linear perspective going back in here in the distance with its focal point back here. And so he did a study for the intention of creating a larger work. Leonardo da Vinci kept everything in journals, you know, and again, studies and sketches, and never really, the only finished works of art we see is like the Mona Lisa and some of his paintings and whatnot, but he primarily used drawing as a means of recording. Here's Pablo Picasso in first composition study. So here we have a lot of gesture sketching, maybe some blind contour, because usually blind contour doesn't really look like anything, but the more we do it, the more we get things in place. So, well, here's his first composition or study for Guernica. Okay, and then here is the composition for Guernica, where he's actually starting to put more information in there now that you can see, oh, this little squiggly mark, if we go back, this little thing, oh, maybe these little horns over here, and then maybe this was a bull, and wait, here it is here. So you can see all these erase lines in here. So he's studying, he's trying to figure out how to compose his piece. Where is he putting his lines and his shapes and his contrasts of value and color and so on and so forth. And then here is the finished piece of Guernica. And you can see he has it finished and composed. This is achromatic because it was done in basically, well, it was oil on canvas, but he used black, white, and middle values are grays in the composition. So preparatory drawings, preliminary sketches, these aren't generally, like I said, finished pieces, but they're treasured for their intrinsic beauty and the process. It shows the process of how artists created these masterworks. You know, they just don't miraculously appear out of nowhere. Cartoon is basically not the cartoons like we see in the Saturday morning papers, but these cartoons were originally full-size drawings made as a guide for a large work in another medium, such as frescoes frescoes within Egyptian tombs, or fresco paintings, or mosaics, or even tapestries. Let's see if this little video link here works. I'll have to post the link for you. It'll give you more information on cartoon. So drawing line techniques. We use several different techniques when we create our marks or our lines, and one is hatching. These are parallel lines, which also helps us suggest shadows or help to create volumes in what we call cross contour lines, or cross hatching, as seen in this next image called the preacher, contour hatching. We also do stippling or pointillisms. Basically, if you take your pencil and you start bouncing it up and down on a piece of paper, it leaves little kind of dots or marks. That's stippling. And then if you were to take your pencil and a sheet of paper and just mindlessly start drawing or scribbling like, you know, your kindergartner, that is a form of scribbling. It's also a technique used to help create a certain texture, and it is a valid technique. You know, here we have little kids that just do it automatically. They know something that we don't yet. So here's an example of hatching, just these parallel lines, and then cross hatching. And then we have contour hatching. So imagine if we were to give a little bit of curve to these lines, that it almost looks like it's kind of bending in space. That's very important to help create form. Value scales and using line. So value or lightness or darkness of an object can also be achieved the more that you stipple or crosshatch over and over again. It helps to create, this for example would be more like stippling or little tiny little circles. And the more that you go and scribble these little circles over and over again, especially like over in this area over and over and over and over again, it gets darker and darker in value. So it's a repetition of line over and over the same area to help create those different values and or darknesses and lights and darks within a work of art. And here's like a little value scale that I have my drawing students make. So tools and materials, obviously paper is the majority that drawers use, and usually a smooth surface or maybe a surface with some tooth or a rough texture. It's a dry media, so pencil, charcoal, Conte crayon, and pastel. If you get different levels of, some of them come with 6B or an H on there. H, means hardness, so the harder the lead or the graphite, the lighter the line will be. B means black, but it also refers to soft, so it'll give you more darker values. So that's why you see drawing kits come in like maybe 6 pencils with different various hardnesses in there, so that you can have a range of values without having to repeat those lines over and over and over again, which adds more time and length to creating the piece. The softer the darker, the harder the lighter, basically, is those varying degrees of hardness. I skipped over one. So drawing in silver and gold, Leonardo to Jasper Johns. This is a short little video. I won't be able to play it in here in the lecture slide, but again, it's another video on bed. Basically using these styluses that are made from silver or gold or brass or whatever on paper, they actually leave marks, like carbon marks. And it's a really cool video. Drawing tools and their characteristics. So we have some calligraphic pens, we have pencils, here's a pencil, so it leaves a real slender line. Here's some charcoal. We have a different couple kinds of charcoal. We have vine charcoal, which leaves lighter marks, but it's a really flaky material, so it wipes really easy or smudges really easy. And then you have the charcoal stick, which is more, vine charcoal looks roundish, whereas the charcoal, compressed charcoal, is more like a little rectangular or square cube-like shape. Then you have paintbrushes. We do use paintbrushes with ink. There is some wet media when it comes to drawing that's used in drawing, which is ink. And we have different types. We have brushes, we have calligraphic pens, you know, the old-fashioned kind, and we have our modern-day mechanical pens. So here is Charles White's Preacher. This you can see in here uses some hatching and cross-hatching lines, and it has definite value in here, likenesses and darkness. And you can tell they help to create form. They help to make it look like it has height, width, and depth in a 2D, two-dimensional plane, which is really important. That's kind of implied form or implied space. Anyways, so charcoal. Charcoal is a great medium to work with. I love it. It's similar to those used by prehistoric people. You know, the charcoal that you burn wood and sticks with. If you get a nice piece, you can draw with it. It draws very quickly. It leaves very dark marks, not really easily erased, and it has a wide range of values. But not all the particles bind to the surface, so you really do have to set it with what we call a fixative to prevent smudging. That's why if you see people coming out of drawing class, or if you ever see somebody with black fingers, it's probably they're a drawer. This is charcoal on paper. Basically how they made the spider web is they took an eraser and erased the lines. This is Charcoal in Conte Crayon by Umberto Bocchini. Very soft, a lot of lines, a lot of movement, and value. And this looks almost like a face right here. So states of mind. If you look in here, I don't know if the emphasis is not right away on these faces, but the more you look at it, the more you see these faces appearing within this image. Over here and over here and over here and down in here. It's one of those illusions I love when drawing. Conte Crayon, it's graphite mixed with clay. It resists smudging. It has a similar variation with charcoal. Wax crayons are, please note that wax crayons should be avoided by serious artists. And we're talking wax crayons as in Crayola crayons that you give to your kids. They're just horrible to work with, but kids love them. George Seurat, study for, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, but it's black Conte Crayon on paper. But this is a study, although we appreciate it for its intrinsic value today. Similar characteristics to chalk is pastels. They're chalky, but they're mostly pigment with a little binding material. They don't allow for much detail, but you can use a particular medium to almost like watercolor to blend and almost paint it in. I would definitely use a fixative with pastels. Here is an example of a pastel on paper. You can see it's very smooth, kind of blurred lines, not really any hard lines. Here's Edgar Degas. He uses pastel on paper. He originally started out with painting and then went into pastels and just never looked back. But you can see that he uses a lot of dark contrasts and colors. And to create those harsh lines, he uses the black charcoal. Liquid media, inks, black inks, brown inks. We have colored inks. We do washes of inks where we take the ink and thin it out almost like a watercolor application. We have felt and fiber tipped marker pens, watercolor pencils, which gives a more translucent kind of effect on white paper. The white paper actually helps to create like an illumination. And gouache, which is opaque watercolor, is used a lot in medieval manuscripts. One of my favorites. I do medieval manuscripts. Hokusai, this is brush drawing, so he uses a calligraphic brush, Japanese brush, and ink, just simple ink. This is Rembrandt, reed pen. So he made a pen out of a reed. He used brown ink and a brown wash and white gouache. So you can see these kind of whitish marks over here and over here and over here and over here. That's probably the gouache. And it looks like he might have added a little water to try to get a translucent effect. Even the masters make, these basic studies that don't always look like they're panning out. This is Nancy Spiro with her piece called Peace. It's gouache and ink on paper. And there's like this gentleman standing on a helicopter and it says peace. Comics. Comics are sequential art forms based on drawings. Comic books are drawing format. culmination of development through basically from the ancient Egyptian murals with the cartoons using to create frescoes, into medieval tapestries, and then into print series in 1730s. Then you have almost these political cartoons, and then today in contemporary times, it's evolved into these featured in newspapers or Little Nemo in Slumberland. But and also furthermore, we have comic books, we have anime graphic novels. It just keeps going on and on. Comics also have a lot to do with the element of time and motion because they are a sequential, time-based kind of read. You know, everything happens in time. Here's Little Nemo in Slumberland. You can see this is going on right here and then over here. So there's indicating that something's happening at two different times. Gilbert Hernandez, Fear of Comics. Basically, he grew up in gangs and stuff, and he is basically taking his experiences in almost in a cathartic kind of way and writing comic books of his experiences. So graphic novels. Novels are book-length storylines. They combine words and images and are produced for national distribution. These are all formats that drawing takes in its final form in contemporary times. This is a page from a graphic novel. Here's some graphic novel covers. This is American Born Chinese. This is an awesome book. It talks about the Monkey King and so on. And Sin City is also made into a couple of movies there, so you guys might recognize that one. This is kind of a contemporary approach to comic books, although it looks like that this might be some sort of foreign language or whatnot. It is actually just gibberish, and an artist is trying to pay homage to this kind of comic book art. Contemporary approaches, drawing in combination with other media, is another way that artists in contemporary times are approaching the drawing media. Here we have ink and acrylic on canvas, along with, you know, obviously ink is a drawing media and acrylic is a painting media, and they've combined these two, makes it mixed media. Here, this is just blue masking tape. They're drawing with tape. So in kind of an abstract kind of way, they are drawing. This is tracings, so or maybe some rubbings. If you were to take a piece of paper and on any rough surface, you take your pencil on the opposite side, start rubbing it, you'll get these kind of rubbings. It's a lot of fun. And here is the most recent media that we are living in our day and age and is always advancing day to day is digital drawing. This was created on an iPad and it's a digital drawing. It looks very simple to stuff that we've seen people create, but you know, this is in 2011, we're in 2018, so things have really expanded and artists are using digital media as fine works of art. The fine art world gives, you know, makes a big to-do about it, like just like when photography came out, it wasn't considered a fine art. Now it's considered a fine art because of the subject matter and content and whatnot. Well, drawing media is started, our digital media started out with graphic designs and computer generated images and clip art and all that stuff. Well, the artists have picked this up as a new media and are using it in a fine art way as well. And that basically wraps it up for drawing.